Thank you so much, first of all, for doing this. It's really
My
cool.
pleasure. My
Uh,
pleasure, man.
I was actually listening to your track Baba Yaga. I think it was released last week, was it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
that was really fun.
really, really cool. And I was like, oh, this is such an interesting sound. It's just a combination of so many things. It's
Y-
beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, we sort of delved into loads of different areas in kind of the inspiration for that tune. There was like loads of like Angolan percussion samples in there, and then there was like also like this Gnawa North African beat, and then there was kind of the drum machine and the techno
Yeah,
thing going on, and Jackson, and yeah, it was really fun. We had a great time doing it. It's a
yeah.
while ago. That was a year ago we recorded that actually.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah.
So
So
many
it's
things have changed since then, right?
yeah. Well, the world. Yeah, I guess the world has changed. Yeah. Um, but yeah, that was really fun. I mean, I'm a trumpet player as well, like originally. So it was great working with Jackson on that, and like I didn't play any trumpet on it. It was just me as a producer and us doing a co-write. It was quite nice and fresh place to come from working on a track like that.
Congratulations. This week you have just released a brand new song, like wow.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it. What was the journey to this moment until you actually released it?
I've been producing under the name Harlequiin for like the last 3 or 4 years, quite a few different EPs out. And kind of the main singer that works on most of this stuff is a great singer based in like the Midlands called Elliot Cole, who's a great artist in his own right. So he's been sort of central to the project, but I've been collaborating with loads of different singers, different people over the course of the project. And this new EP, I mean, funnily enough, I started working with this guy. He's called James Smithles, the guy who features on Like Wow, and we worked together on an ad pitch for some kind of like thing. I don't know, whether it was toothpaste or biscuits or coffee or something. But we worked on this kind of unknown pitch, which kind of referenced some of the sort of sounds that you hear on Like Wow. And we pitched it, and the classic thing, it just kind of goes into the ether, and you never hear any more about it. And then like 2 months later, I was like listening to it. I was like, I feel this is really strong, and we should finish this and like make it into something, because that happened at the beginning of lockdown, and it was a really nice chance to collaborate with James. I hadn't really worked with him before, and even though it was for a commercial, like we had a great time doing it and got on really well. And it felt like spending that amount of time doing it, the more I went back and revisited the track, I was like, I think we should do something with this. I think this is really strong. And he was up for it, and we decided to like. Luckily, there were no lyrics about branding of like pearly white smile or whatever it was, or it was fairly generic lyrically, and it was kind of the idea was it was like a happy track, I guess, which also was quite what's the word, cathartic, I guess, to write something like that at the beginning of like the world falling apart in March, April. It's quite nice to work on a track in a major key that was happy and bombastic and euphoric. Decided that was going to be the first single for the new EP.
It really sounds positive. If I would compare Baba
Yeah,
Yaga and
yeah.
Like Wow feels like it's taking a different route, Was the song originally written during the lockdown?
It was like, I think it was April. I was on tour, then mid-March came home, and then April we started working on that thing. We turned it around pretty quickly, like the first little genesis, the idea. It all came from this like there were like about 3 or 4 different gospel samples. For the big sample at the beginning was like stitched together between 3 or 4 different gospel samples that I kind of repitched them and sort of stitched them together and kind of glued the sound of them so they sounded in the same world. So it kind of sounds like it's this one sample, but it's actually 4 different random like live gospel things from the 50s and 60s that I've kind of stitched together. And it started like that, sent it to James, had the idea for a big kind of trappy beat, sent that to him, and he instantly had a vibe for it, and we chopped it up between us and came up with the essence of the song.
How did the creative process look during the lockdown? Like, were you always doing like Zoom sessions, or because it's
Yeah,
very different rather than being together in the same room and just jamming?
yeah, totally. There were lots of like WhatsApp voice notes, and he definitely has a lot of WhatsApp voice notes of me kind of badly singing what I want, which he's threatened to release, at some point if I ever cross him for any reason. So there's loads of like versions of me kind of singing like little vibes that I'm hearing on something. His idea was fairly fully formed, and my idea for the track was fairly fully formed. So it was just, we did a few Zoom sessions, a bit of WhatsApp there, and to and fro, and we found our feet with how it was going to sound pretty quickly, I think.
So amazing when we have the technology to do that, right? It's
Yeah,
you can be anywhere in the world. The quality of the microphones that singers can be using and just record stuff in their bedroom and then send over, for example, to you.
yeah,
It's then you can actually take that and already build on it, right?
yeah,
You don't
yeah, totally.
need to go into an expensive studio anymore.
Yeah, I mean, just before I got on this call to you today, I was just speaking to a drummer that I'm working with on another project who was like, he has this audio movers app. Somebody sends it to you, and if you click on it, they then have control of your monitors, so they can play stuff
Wow.
from their kind of Logic file, their Logic session or Pro Tools session, and it comes straight out your monitors, so you hear it in your room. Sharing computer sound on Zoom is always a bit dodgy, but the audio movers thing works really nicely. So we were just listening to stuff for the last hour and like talking about edits and stuff. And there's something I quite like about the process of sometimes, because sometimes when you're in the studio with somebody, sometimes there are boring bits and there are bits that you just need to like almost be on your own to kind of follow a little creative path. And when somebody's sat next to you or behind you, you're kind of second guessing what their instincts are about it. And sometimes you just need that kind of solitude of like, I need to follow this idea because I think we can get somewhere good, but on the way it's going to kind of, you know, it's maybe not going to sound great, but I feel like I have a vision. And I think it's like that freedom to play, I guess, the freedom to just kind of experiment. Sometimes it's harder to do that when there's somebody in the room, because every decision feels like it's going to be a final decision and you want to keep the energy moving, and the dynamic is harder to read, and you're maybe doing more to kind of be diplomatic and work out how to keep the energy up. But it's actually sometimes you just need in a session, like, I need half an hour to make this sound good. Reading those personal dynamics is like, I feel, as much as like having great gear, great instinct, and great kind of musical skills to whatever extent you believe those things are important to a session. I think like that diplomacy thing, or that kind of personal skills of being able to be cool in a session, to be able to know what people need and make people feel comfortable, is like, it's kind of paramount, I think, kind of above all the other stuff.
As a producer, you need to collaborate with others to kind
Yeah.
of put your music together, right? Do you have any criteria for musicians that you kind of reach out, especially, for example, like singers or those that you write with? How do you find them, or do they find you?
Well, it's a bit of both, I guess, and also it's like, it's so often about like a nice personal vibe. You know, going back to what I was saying before, a nice personal vibe with somebody. Like the idea of working with somebody in the studio who I thought was an arsehole wouldn't be, you know, that's definitely not something that I want. Also, my studio is at the bottom of my garden, so like having somebody in my house that I don't. The important, one of the most important things is having a good personal relationship and respect for somebody. I mean, I think like, yeah, I think being pushed out of your comfort zone is really good, and also having to employ different kind of co-writing techniques with different people. For example, some people arrive and they 100% know what the lyric is, they 100% know what the sentiment of the song is, and they don't want you to get involved in that, but they just need help with or they want your input with the musical element of it and the production element of it, which is great. I love that. But it's also really exciting when somebody comes who's got a really strong musical and production idea, and they can sing, but they have a fragment of lyrics, but they don't really have a narrative, or they don't have a lyrical concept. I love that as well. I try to kind of always reach out to people I think are going to kind of challenge things for me in terms of process and in terms of sound, because I think that brings more interesting results. You know, it means that you're kind of ever evolving, increasing your skill set, but also like developing as a musician, producer.
So how did the whole lockdown situation had an impact on you? Like, sounds like you are very busy anyway. So did you become more busy because now you don't tour and you're just basically all the time in the studio, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's funny. I see so many people talking about online about the mental health aspect of being a musician generally, and of lockdown. And I think it's curious. It's a curious one, because like for me, I'm always quite proactive at doing my own stuff. And I think a lot of people have found solace at this point of being like, I finally got the time to do what I've been meaning to do. But I feel like I'm always getting on with that anyway. I don't think lockdown has offered me any more solace in terms of being in the studio. I think it's the opposite, actually. I kind of need to be out doing some stuff, make what I do in the studio make sense to me as a kind of an individual. So it's been hard, you know, it's really up and down. But I'm lucky that I've got space that's basically in my house to work and to have people. And I mean, there's peaks and troughs, you know, which I think is mental health in anybody's life. You just have to sort of observe those peaks and troughs and not just go into a free fall with them, but I think kind of observe that this is a down period now, or this is an up period now, and just kind of let that drift and just observe it rather than wrestle to make yourself happy or wrestle against the stuff that you're finding difficult too much. I think just observing seems like quite a powerful attribute. I haven't mastered that, but in theory, that's what I like to think.
Like wow, as you said, it's kind of teaser to the EP, and
Yeah,
in your press release it says that you were thinking of releasing it this year. Is it still happening?
I'm still working that out with a few of the other people involved in running the kind of business end of the project with me. Next single is going to be coming in about 2 weeks, which is also going to feature James Smithles, who's on this track. He's also a great artist in his own right under the name The Last Morel. It's well worth checking out. I'll send you a link to his new EP. The EP is either going to be end of the year. If people are feeling too Christmassy by like mid-November, then I'll probably leave it because I don't want it to, you know, it's definitely not a Christmas feel. Although that like wow is feel good, but like I don't want it to be lost in the noise of Christmas too much. So it'll either be the end of this year or beginning of next year. And there's a couple of other great guests on it. Great artist that I work with a lot called Nim, who's amazing singer, sings with Paloma Faith, but is really interesting artist in her own right. I work with her a lot. And a great kind of more jazz folky singer called Feeny Behrman. It's also wicked. And Elliot Cole, who also features on a lot of the old Harlequin stuff. He's been a long time collaborator of mine, and we've done this kind of like LCD sound system meets Junior Boys vibe, which I'm really excited to get that out there. I think that's going to be a banger as well.
Nice one.
So,
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
I'm excited to get it out there.
Yeah. So before we finish, there are a lot of people right now who are maybe still trying to go into music, right? So, but what would you advise to someone who is thinking about it? Maybe they're stuck and they're not sure whether to go it or not. Like, what would be the advice that you would give them? You know, how to start the journey?
I think maybe the most important thing is just to jump in and not worry about making mistakes, and don't limit yourself to one. Be open that different career trajectories and paths could come out of anything. And you know, the idea of being, you know, interning, being an engineer at a local studio in your town is as important as getting a nice session gig with somebody, or you know, doing some you know, some work in an electronic shop that's fixing musical gear could be as important as doing a co-write with somebody. You know, there's so many a myriad of ways that every different experience can affect your ability to be a creative, interesting musician. So I think just be open to ideas and open to like exploring and learning. And I don't think like learning is ever to the detriment of, you know, of what you can offer creatively.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Rory.
Thanks, Dov. Really fun.
Thank you for having the time. So everyone watching, Harlequin's Like Wow latest single is already out. You can stream on all the platforms. And as Rory mentioned, EP is coming this year as well. So watch out for that.
Nice
Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Wicked.